Hi, everyone. Hi, all. This final session, though, I'm really excited about. We're going to have John come on up again and introduce our final keynote.
Hey again, everyone. I hope today was valuable. I'm really excited about this final session here. It is such an incredible full circle moment for me. I have to tell you guys about the first ever stand event we threw. It was actually in New York City. Brendan, I don't know if you're still here. We threw it at Brendan Gahan's office. It was like the whole event was maybe like half of the size of this room. There were like, Tim, how many people there? 30? It was the first ever stand event. I just started Stan. We were just trying to get it off the ground. It's basically like the same software product it is today, but like in those early, you guys all know, like in the early days when you're trying to hustle and make it, and no one's listening to you, like you're just like, I think this is valuable. Like you keep hustling, what have you, and you keep iterating. And that's I had one creator friend, Andrew Murnane, who brought Tim to that event because I was texting my friends like it was super early creator economy. He's like, bring anyone. Like we're just trying to like get this out there and like meet other creators. And I met Tim at our first ever Stan event. And then for the team to say, hey guys, we got lucky enough to book Tim to come be a keynote speaker at this moment, like what a special, that was 4 years ago. And I think it speaks towards the human journey that is entrepreneurship that we're all going through. Of like you will yourself into this world and you iterate and you compound 1% every single day. And 4 years later, you get to work with someone like Tim and get to hear him speak. But to introduce Tim, I'm sure, raise your hand if you follow Tim or you know Tim and you love his stuff. Tim, I mean, think about the impact you've had. When I think about your content and what you do, you've gone through the journey that so many of us have gone of like the 9 to 5 and balancing that with your creativity and trying to be a creator on top of it. I think for me personally, when I think about how you inspire me, it's to be a better person in general, like the human experience itself. Like I think about your relationship with your partner and your family, and every day you show up, like I can't imagine doing daily vlog, cutting above the noise in all those ways. But all that to be said, I'll let you take it from here. Tim, we're so grateful for everything you do. So.
Wow. I trying to not get emotional right out of the gate. Like, holy shit. It is super wild. And I gotta say a couple of opening words before I actually give the opening words. Because it is a testament to just showing up. You have no idea sometimes what you're actually getting into. And to found this community, because a lot about being there that night was because Andrew had reached out and because I heard what John was building, and I'm like, this is fascinating. And it was like this escape for me, right? Like, if you don't know my background, I'm going to give you a little bit of background and talk about the transition and hopefully give you a little insight into if you're looking in regards to how you can build your own value and what your purpose is and how you can think through all of those things, because what a wild handful of years it had been. But to think about that evening and the community that was there, and we were just looking through some pictures. It was April 1st, 2022, and to see some of the video and how people were coming together in that moment and to see where it's grown, like a testament to what the vision that you had and the people that you were gathering together too, they created not just the environment and the platform, but truly a community to be here today because of the fact that we share creativity, which is just like such a wild concept overall. So anyway, my name is Tim. Hi, nice to meet you, everybody. If you didn't know me, and these hand-drawn slides, I actually did this presentation or the similar presentation at an AI conference that I showed up with hand-drawn slides. It was pretty fun. All right, so who am I personally? I'm a 47-year-old dad and husband. I like to give context for this stuff. I was a C student, don't have a college degree. A sneakerhead from the age of 12 years old, and this will all make sense. It kind of ties into who I am and what I talk about and how I figured out, yes, I'm actually going to leave my job as an executive at a Fortune 7 company, not even 500 or 100, a Fortune 7 company, and dive into this space. But I had all these things. Everyone talks about, like, what is your niche? My niche was protein bar reviews. Protein bar reviews was some of the first content that I made for real. Sushi, I could talk about sushi endlessly, just overall, and then I became the TikTok guy. It was actually really weird when someone was like, hey, I know you from Instagram. I'm like, what? You know me from Instagram? That's weird. Like, I was always just the TikTok guy. At 42, like, what the hell? Like, on what planet? Professionally, which is, it's so funny, I like pause. I'm like, professionally, what the hell was I professionally? Um, legitimately, this is how, like, what a nerd I am and how both sides of my brain work. My handle, or like the URL that I gave myself on LinkedIn is complex business problem solver. Literally, I'm like, oh, what's a cool thing to use? Complex business problem solver, because I do like it. I like solving Rubik's Cubes at large companies for God knows what reason, even though I'm somebody that doesn't have a college degree. I do have invigorating work vibes. I know it's kind of weird the way that I wrote it there, but I like the idea of going into a room and being like, none of y'all want to be here, and you don't want to talk about how we're going to change our project management system right now, but I'm going to make it fun. Because if you're going to have a job and you go do things, like, you might as well have a good environment. I just got thrust into a position where I had a really big team at a very early age, and so I wanted people to enjoy it, like, especially when you're in an environment you're like, everybody hates me because I'm the boss, so I might as well make it fun. And I do help get people to be the best version of themselves. I'm actually kind of comfortable to say that out loud, which is weird. I had somebody that retired on my team once. That was a very surreal moment. Like, holy shit, I have somebody that works for me that is retiring. And he said, I wish I would have met you 20 years ago in my career. And I was like, holy shit, I thought I tortured you for the last couple of years, and the fact that you said that. So that was part of how I figured out making content was not as weird as it might be. So during my time in my career, I started my career with ABC Sports. After being I assume the chuckles are at the ridiculousness of my slides, which I'm quite proud of. This guy, he's a brilliant artist. Look him up on Instagram. His name's Nate Turbo. Don't judge me based off of his sense of humor. Yes, there's a lot of it that I think is absolutely hilarious, but you also see some stuff you'd be like, whoa, Tim, maybe we need to have a talk. But, just because you're somewhere doesn't mean you agree with everything. Anyway, started my career with ABC Sports. Live sports production was the first 5 years of my career. That's kind of where I learned editing. I wasn't actually allowed to touch any of the controls because it's all unionized there. But I did a lot of golf, and I had to watch an editor and work with an editor to figure out how to make, like, exciting golf videos, which is really fucking hard, actually. Like, you're like, okay, cool. I mean, we was back in the Tiger era, so I had something going for us, but that's when I noticed, how do you take something boring and make it actually exciting? You look for the little moments of movement, right? So instead of me just sitting at my desk, can I, like, move a hand or something like that? It's like, instead of the guy standing on the green, like, actually have him, like, leaning on his. So anyway, learned a ton there. What an amazing experience to start a career in live sports. And then I panicked after I got married. Met a girl in Vegas, married 7 months later. Be 20 years in April, which I'm very excited about. Thank you, yeah. She's the reason why I'm standing here. Panicked. After 5 years in live sports production, I'm like, shit, my career has been pigeonholed. I can only do live sports now. No one's ever going to believe that I have any business acumen. I have to jump ship. I cannot travel 36 weeks a year following sports around the world anymore. So I convinced ESPN that even though I have no college degree and zero marketing background other than doing some not-for-profit stuff off the side of my desk when I was like 22, you should totally hire me for your marketing team. Why? Because I knew live production, and their marketing team knew how to sell things, but nobody knew how to be the internal diplomat. Message within that, your narrative is your most important thing. I had zero reason for ESPN to actually hire me other than me saying, this is the business problem you're trying to solve. Having really good marketing campaigns that you can put on air, Coors Light Cold Hard Facts, NFL Countdown brought to you by IBM, anything you've ever seen that's integrated branded content on ESPN, I probably touched it or I might have invented it back in the day. And that's actually wildly helpful right now in doing brand deals and thinking through, like, how do you do something that's integrated in content that's actually going to make sense? But I convinced them, I'm like, you need an internal diplomat that knows the live sports world, can learn the marketing side, but then come up with those deals that will actually have IBM who's like, hey, here's $25 million, what do you want to do with it? And come up with ideas that are not going to make the sports fan want to barf. But then actually the production team can get on and off the air. So I did that for 7 years, learned everything that I know now about any of the brand deals that I'm given the privilege of being able to bring to life any of the content that I do. What a weird thing too, of like doing that for the IBMs and all those types of brands, and then all of a sudden you're in your mid-late 40s and you're like, wait a minute, I'm gonna do that and I'm the person in the thing. It does allow your weirdest ideas to run wild. And then I went to a place called what was Time Warner Cable, now Charter Communications. True story, if you haven't heard this one before, they brought me in the Thursday before my first day. Let me take a step back before I tell that story. Who here has seen a small business commercial on TV or on streaming? Like Bob's Toyota, really, there's that few hands? No one's seen a local business commercial? Okay, that's what I thought, thank you. 99% chance that somebody on my team produced that commercial that you saw. Cable companies own 2 minutes of advertising for every hour of cable programming. They sell that media locally at scale across the country. That's how small businesses end up on streaming programming or on cable TV. They brought me in to reinvent how those commercials got made. I was like, you think my production background is for that? Absolutely not, but hey, you want to give me this gigantic title and this gigantic team and go figure it out? Sure, what the hell? They brought me in the Thursday before my first day and said, oh, by the way, the 100 people that you're going to inherit, you have to fire everybody within the first 6 weeks and start the department from scratch. You have 8 months to do it. You handle 20,000 projects on an annual basis. None of that can slow down as you're doing this. It's like, holy fuck, I have to go throw up in the corner and then hopefully go back and get my job at ESPN. I didn't. I had a kid at the same time, and it was like, Godspeed, good luck. Then Charter Communications, so I survived through that first year. Charter bought us. So I've seen everything under the sun as it relates to what can potentially go wrong or what challenges there might be in corporate America, which is why I feel comfortable trying to help people through what they can do. So that's how I kind of figured out like what I can do. But through that, I aggregated like all of this stuff, right? Like all of these things you start to, as you go through, and especially if you're somebody that's like in the 9-to-5 world, you are going to, in school, you pay them, at least this is what I heard after I left, you pay them to get your education. In corporate America, they will pay you, and if you're dumb enough like me to actually be like, cool, I will do all of these things from, humility I kind of taught myself, but like, branding, restructures and reorganizations. If you know how to run a P&L, you can basically do anything, right? Process development. I've written job descriptions. I've come up with process so that 20,000 creative projects can get through a queue in a given year. I suck at making my own content strategy, but I was damn good at doing it for a shitload of other people. But like all of this stuff now is in my back pocket, and that can never be taken away from me. So, especially for those that are kind of like on the fence, don't forget that every day that you're showing up, if you're still in a 9-to-5 job, that you are taking those skills with you and that those will forever be in your back pocket. Nobody can take this pie chart away from me, regardless if I ever go back to corporate America or not. But I was also miserable. I had a sociopath boss for several years who was just maniacal. I mean, I could tell you some of the craziest stories about how I haven't put this in any TikTok because it was like too wild. Oh shit, you're recording this. Now I can't use this for my speaking reel. And then it got off the rails. And then I started making TikToks. And so I was like, all right, how do I make myself happier? And then I started to realize, like, right, you get into those situations where you think, this is so hard. Like, I'm just not in a good place right now. And I was like, you know what? Today's the only today I get. And I kept telling myself that. Like, today is, what the hell's today? Today's the 5th or the 6th. Today's the only February 6th, 2025 that you will ever get in your life. How wild is that? Like, I say that out loud to myself on a consistent basis, and it never is not helpful to hear. When are you coming to March? Oh, March? What did I say? Oh, okay, yeah. So, close enough. Close enough. So, through some of those realizations and through the career journey, I realized that as I was pulling myself out of some darker spaces, that I had this like actual addiction to appreciation as though it was a drug. And that was a bit of a realization, especially as I got into my content journey. And then I started to get happier where I'm like, okay, today's the only day I get. I can kind of appreciate things on a different level that for some reason make me that much more excited about like sharing things and being stoked on a consistent basis. That starts to get pulled through into my TikToks. But then I'm like, well, what do I do with this? I'm a guy that wakes up at 4:02 every morning, and I grab this like little basket of clothes that I sneak upstairs with like a weird burglar in my own house because I don't want to get dressed in the room right next to my wife because then I'll wake her up and it would be like a whole thing. Like, and then I'm going to make TikToks about that? God, did that feel like the goofiest thing in the world? But I think a testament to those are like, how do I not cringe about things and be okay with making stuff? Like, that was, I mean, that's me. Like, and y'all have been there with me. Like, a lot of you like lived through the days with me. Like, that's pretty funny. And then again, I tried to figure out, like, what are all these things that I want to talk about? How do I actually put that into some sort of content strategy? But it was more just about sharing and showing up and being so appreciative that there were people there that were willing to spend that time with me. Of all the things that you could do in a given day, you're going to give me 90 seconds of your time? What a wild concept. And then it led to things like speaking gigs. I got a speaking gig in Germany. And keep in mind, like, through these handful of slides, doing this on top of running the 240-person department and trying to be a husband and a reasonable dad at the same time, too. You can do the things that are super hard. When I get this call to go to Germany to go speak at a marketing conference, that's work on top of work on top of work on top of the work. To build the deck, to then show up, to take the time away, to do the work, to answer the email while I'm in Germany so that my company doesn't I'm breaking every PR violation on the planet as far as they were concerned because I didn't get their permission to go there, but I'm like, there's no way I'm not going to Germany to do this. The reward for good work is more work. If you can be okay with that too, that can make a huge difference in how you find happiness in what you're doing too. Like, it hasn't slowed down. It's cranked up. Like, I left my job, 254 days ago. I can know that number, but I don't know that it's February or March. But the reward for good work is more work, and that's okay. And as often as you can say today was a good day, and for me too, if I could take the responsibility of doing all those things, but making sure that 240 people on my team, my number one job for them was helping them go home and say today was a good day. So through all of this, now the hamster wheel in my head's going bananas. I'm like, I don't know what the hell's going on. I've made 1,000 straight TikToks for God knows what reason. I just went to Germany to speak at this thing. Brands are popping up occasionally asking me to do things. I'm breaking every rule in the handbook on the planet as far as my company's concerned. You know how weird it is when your boss walks in your office and is like, hey, how was your day yesterday, Tim? I was like, it was good. He's like, we need to have a conversation about the Rolling Stone article. Like, nobody knew what the hell happened. Like, that was really weird. Like, you're in a lot of trouble. It's like, oh shit, that's right. I probably should have given somebody a fair warning about that. It was a very surreal time. So then, what do you do? After I realized I have all of those things in my back pocket relative to my broader skill set, then it comes down to this authenticity thing that everybody talks about, right? And that I knew that at some point that if I was going to play it safe, right, which is what the PLITS is up there, playing it safe is going to equal mediocrity and cynicism. And I started to really realize that if I was just stuck in this in-between phase, that playing it safe was just going to lead to mediocrity and cynicism. And I had to become very comfortable with that. And these are all like very well-studied things about how awareness is built with bold authenticity. And it's like, this is something in the emotional intelligence space that I've studied a tremendous amount recently. And it's built into these 4 categories. I have no idea where I am on time. I hope everyone's cool that I'm probably gonna run long. But I'm almost done. Bold self-awareness, unbiased processing, your behavior on a day-to-day basis, and something called relational orientation. These are like studied things that goes into this thing called authenticity that everybody talks about. Bold self-awareness is pretty straightforward. It's your motives, it's your emotions, it's your preferences, and it's your abilities. And I'm telling you all this because these are the things that I was also contemplating on top of my skill set, on top of all the things that are happening to help me decide, do I actually do this stupid thing of leaving this job where I've got all this stock plan and I've got a 12-year-old that I'm trying to send to school and to support and like all of these things that I've already built in my life? Having to become okay with this stuff and to really understand it helped me tremendously, which is why I want to pay it forward by talking about it. Unbiased processing. If you can be okay with like what your strengths and weaknesses are without denial or blame, then you are able to unbiasedly process what you are doing, how it is showing up, and how people are looking at what you're trying to share, what you're offering to the world, and if you can go through that process and become more comfortable with it over time, that helps tremendously. Your behaviors, how you're showing up on a day-to-day basis, and can you be okay to do those things? And as everybody, I'm sure everyone, with all the criticism, right? With all the potential rejections, with all the fear of failures, can you still behave in a way that's congruent with how you feel you are as a human being? This is math. This is what they call facts, right? And if you can become comfortable with this, and I had to really soak this in. Am I really okay with this, or do I want to go hide behind my desk and turn off my goddamn phone and go back to my normal life? But really soaking this in and digesting it helped tremendously. And then relational communication, like the whole idea of building a community. Can you actually meet them where they are? Can you understand how they're feeling in any given day and be okay with that? Not have it totally overwhelm you, but at least have it be something that is going to provide you some guidance on a consistent basis. And then my wife. Her support's nuts. That's all I can say about that. So, then you're like, well, what the hell does this mean? Do I really do this? Going to these events with, John, I'm like, what am I really going to do? It took me a long ass time to get there. I spent 13 months unwinding myself from that company. It was exhausting, to say the least. I spent so much time, what I called firing myself responsibly. I walked out of that company without a laptop and zero strategy. Do not do what I did. Like, everybody, if you're like, okay, cool, like, I'm going to make yourself a plan for the first 90 days, for God's sakes. Like, the fact that I walked out there and I'm like, oh shit, what am I going to use as a computer now is so stupid. I had to do it the right way. Right? So I spent literally a year unwinding myself emotionally, physically, monetarily, and responsibly fired myself, so much so that they let me basically create my own, reorg the entire department around my departure, which is also kind of weird too, because I'm like, hey, here's a plan for leave. And they're like, cool. Even, I thought they'd kick me out the door and be like, it was super weird for the last year, you got to go. Like, everybody talks about the fact that there's this weird dude at the company that does these things. But they let me basically reorg myself out of there. So when I became comfortable with the fact that the pie chart is mine, nobody can take that away from me. That's just a scratch of the surface of the skill set that I have. That's my value. That's with help from the fine folks at Stan, which we've had a lot of conversations about today, thank God. That's your storefront, right? A platform like Stan can help you build the storefront, can help you, but what's your pie chart? What's the value that you bring? I became way more comfortable with this entire notion of jumping from corporate to creator, knowing that it wasn't just going to be one thing. It's all of those things. It's a very weird pie chart when you're like, cool, I can do a deodorant spot, but then you need help reorganizing your 240-person creative department. I can do that too. That's a very odd thing. But if you can become comfortable, if you can have it on paper, literally write those things down, have an understanding of all the value that you bring to the table, and then be okay with the things from an emotional intelligence perspective that you need to wrap your head around because of how fascinating, amazing, inspiring it is to be in this world, but also how daunting it is. It's like being an athlete to a certain extent. Your stats are in the newspaper every day after how many at-bats and how many hits did you have yesterday? Oh, so-and-so is really on a low streak, or so-and-so's on a hot streak. It's crazy when your stats are out there publicly and the comments, it's hard. It is really hard. So being cool with your value and being cool with how your brain is going to be able to soak through that, and being comfortable with this thing called authenticity and what that means to you, that's the combination that put me in a position where I was like, I love this. I really love this space. And I love the fact that I have all of those things that corporate America taught me. I remember telling my friends at some point, I'm like, yo, they're turning me into like a corporate monster. Like the amount of training and the things that I'm getting exposed to that I can do, it's like it's a lot to wrap my head around, especially as like the guy who is just the weird goalie 17-year-old dude that just wanted to talk about sneakers, and then I've got all this corporate stuff. But it was that combination that made me comfortable to be like, no, I love this space. For some reason, I love making these weird little videos every single day. And if I didn't take my mental vitamins on this day, and that's how I ended up here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. We're going to sit down for a quick little Q&A.
Was that like a half hour? I have no idea how long that was.
It's actually March 6th, 2026 now. It's a year later. We're not going to get that whole year back, guys. No, it was awesome. So, Tim, you've once been described as the Casey Neistat of this current generation. Those are big shoes to fill. But specifically for anyone who's unfamiliar with Tim's content, you're churning out daily vlogs every single day. Right, on top of the full-time corporate job you had for so long, on top of being a present father and partner, can you walk us through your process of how you were creating daily content, both from like a mental mindset perspective, given how shitty life can be, and then also just tactically, I'm so curious to hear, how did you cut all of that content every single day to do a voiceover?
So first of all, thank you again for having me here. Like, what an absolute treat to spend the time for so many different reasons to have all the conversations today. It was like, it's so sloppy behind the scenes. I edit in iMovie. I literally have made almost 2,000 pieces of short form content now in iMovie, which is fun to say for a couple different reasons. Number one is you cannot edit in 9:16 in iMovie. I have to rotate every single one of the videos that I've done and edit like this. If you're talking to me and you see my head tilt to the side, it's because I've made 2,000 pieces of short form content in iMovie. The process was, after I was like, you know what, maybe the protein bar review thing, as much as I love doing it, is not like the series for me. It was finding things that I found joy in on a day-to-day basis, and making sure I got enough of it so that I could tell a story. And for a long time, it was like, I wanted the viewer to be like, I could say all these things in the corporate space that are gonna sound pretentious. I did this thing with the president, and then I did this thing with that. And so I started to say you, because I wanted to bring the person along and be like, no, you can do this. If my dumb ass can do all these things, and you can do all these things. And so the process was really just extracting what I genuinely found joy in on a day-to-day basis, making sure I had enough of those things that I felt like once I got into the editing that it was going to make sense. But I grabbed clips all day. I would airdrop them to my laptop on the subway ride home to like at least get a timeline going. I would do that again at the end of the day in between taking a sleeping pill and scrambling upstairs to make sure I didn't pass out in the kitchen. And then when I would wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning the next day, I would look it back and I'd be like, what the hell happened yesterday? This is a whirlwind. Pick a spot in the timeline. I'm like, oh, this seems like a reasonable place to start because of whatever the hell happened. I make up the voiceover off the top of my head, which I do not recommend because you can sit there a lot of days and you're like, I have no idea what I'm saying. I hope this is decent. And then, especially during the corporate time, I would give myself a hard cutoff at like 5:45 in the morning, be like, I have to go for a run, I have to go for a walk, I have to go to the gym, I have to do something physical. So it was just like, find joy, capture things that are gonna feel like they tell a cohesive story relative to like, I don't just show up in the office, obviously I took the subway there. And try to do so too, especially in New York City, where you don't feel like you're just that weird person that's videotaping everybody else all the time. So how do I find the right angle so that people can really feel like they're there with me? Because I was always that kid that would be like, you have no idea what I saw at the Five and Dime store today. Like somebody walked in and they had a purple dot, and like, so I was like, I don't know what you're telling me or why you're telling me this, but I just found joy in all of those moments and wanted to share it. And then I would end up editing an iMovie.
I love it. And then mentally, how did you find the discipline, or do you feel like you're just wired this way to every single day go through your day, no matter how shitty the day might be, capture content, do the voiceover? Like, where does that come from?
I just loved it. I really do. There's something about it that genuinely feels like mental vitamins. And if I don't do it, I feel like I left a part of me behind. I don't know how else to explain it. And then certainly you know that like, oh, you got to show up consistently, and like being able to post on a regular basis makes a big difference. But there was just something genuinely like gratifying and soothing about being able to, because especially when you show up and for, if you're like, for the role that I had, when I'm just giving myself to other people, like the reason why I'd wake up at 4 is to make sure that everybody else on my team had what they needed before they started their day. And so to be there, so to be present during the day and to know that I got a part of me out into the world already, if that makes sense, like that brought an extra level of joy that made it very easy to do it consistently.
I love it. And you mentioned your protein bar reviews. That as a series might not be the series, but you are very well known for a couple other series. One is your Sunday Scary series, which for those who don't watch it every Sunday before, I guess we all kind of work our own schedules, but basically you just motivate everyone to be like, hey, don't have Sunday Scaries, like embrace the suck. And then you also have one which is, advice to your younger self, like tips if you're early in your career. Those have been highly successful series. So I'm curious for folks, because we're all thinking about like, what is our series? How do we get people to follow us? All that kind of stuff. What gave you the signal around those specific series? Like, what informed that decision that has then driven outside success for you?
It's a great question. I think that you hear, I heard this a lot, and I love echoing it, which is your answers are in the DMs, your answers are in the comments, like what people are telling you. I remember seeing, especially in the early days of TikTok, when it was like, what's the trend? What's that thing that like everybody is doing, and do your version of it? And I was like, I'm terrible at those. Like I did a couple of them, like this is the worst thing ever. And I feel so uncomfortable doing it. And then I got more comfortable with just doing the thing that may not have been as sexy as that. But the one trend that will never, ever, 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 ever go away is time and place. Even if I didn't get the month right earlier, like when you can show up when you know the viewer is in that time and place, it's Monday morning. What are they thinking? How are they thinking about that thing? Right? So, and also like as the boss as well, the things that I couldn't say for various reasons in the corporate space, but I knew would be helpful. It's like if I can just help, that's good. And I've actually had this realization over the past couple of days that I should give zero shits about vanity metrics anymore because of the impact. And like I've had some people come up to me and they're like, that thing that you did that time, I'm like, and at first I was like, oh, that thing I thought performed like shit, but it doesn't matter if I get like 2 or 3 real human beings, or like that impacted me. So I'd say it's about impact and where you think you can genuinely be additive to a conversation, then you're gonna find your sweet spot.
And so you were adjusting yourself that you're not giving yourself the strategy that you need to succeed now full time. So if you were to take yourself out of yourself and just be a third party, client advisor as you were in your old job, if you were to give yourself advice on this next stage of full time focus on this, what would be the strategy you would give yourself?
That's great because now I'm going to solve my own problem. It's time and place. What are based off of what I know, based on what my expertise is, understanding where people are going to be, time and place, and showing up to support them. So starting there, and I would get and Andrew and Riley, who are in the crowd, have heard me lament this like over and over and over again. It's becoming super disciplined with like, okay, cool, like Sunday Scaries becomes easy because I know it's every Sunday night, and this is what I should do, and I shouldn't care too much about how it performs, good or bad. And becoming very disciplined with treating myself almost like a TV guide, where it's like Tuesday at 8 p.m., Tim's Talk Show, or like whatever it is, and then just getting super disciplined about that. Far too often I just get dragged around by, oh shit, what am I going to do today? And that's just not smart for a multitude of reasons. So I'm trying to build, and I think that this is this could be very helpful for those that might have a similar conundrum. Make that TV guide for yourself. As you're doing it, like build tools. Build tools for yourself too. I'm in the process of rebuilding my old office as a Lego set, and I'm super stoked about it. So the entire floor, like I'm going to a place, I'm like, I have the blueprints because I walked away from that place with every fucking file that they did not want me to walk away with. Blueprints to that floor, recreate the floor. So now, because I look at a lot of other bad, like what I consider to be bad or misleading corporate content. So when someone's like, oh, I've got this problem about not getting the raise, I can be like, oh, let's walk down to Don in finance's office and have a conversation with her about this and like have that live in the Lego world. If you're familiar with Adobe Character Animator, you can basically so I have somebody approached me on my team 4 years ago and was like, if you want to make corporate communications less scary, can we make you into a cartoon? I was like, oh my God, that's a brilliant idea. So I hired my team to recreate that character, which goes back to the TV guide thing. It's like, if I can have this structured thing and have the tools to be able to pull from so it feels like I have my own little like variety pack of creative toolkits and then the discipline to create my own TV guide, that's what I would say and that I know I needed to do.
I love it. I think I would summarize it as, in the business world, you hear a bunch of buzzwords like systems, routine, process, right? And I'm like, what does that mean? In this case, when I think about the creative mindset, speaking from personal experience, it's like the creative is volatile, but it's emotion. It's like whatever you're feeling that day, you want to do. And there's actually some healthy habits around success if you were to routine that out. And I love that TV guide mentality. Like Sunday nights, we're going to do this because we have the data points that this is an incredible series. And if I just commit to doing this, no matter how I might feel that day, it's going to lead to my long-term success.
1,000%. I mean, there's some people that have been really successful recently that have just shown up time and place the right way based on where the audience's head is.
Yeah. I'd say, guys, like identify and find your process and then refine that.
Yeah, the funniest thing is, so I did that for that big team, and we had it down to a science. And then I left, and like after I hated myself for the first couple of months, I got to sat up in the chair, and I'm like, oh, I've done this already. In fact, I did this for like a lot of other people, and we handled 10,000 small businesses a year to do 20,000 projects for them. I'm like, oh my God, I have done this. Like literally, that was my job. How have I not figured this out? I mean, we had a 7 petabyte storage facility for all of, like, we thought through everything. And then I had this realization afterwards, like, oh, wait a minute. I don't just have to rely on my phone and how I'm feeling in the given moment. Like process is gold.
We're so good at giving advice to other people, and then it's hard to apply to ourselves.
Right? But that's okay too, right? I think that there's gold within that, right? Like some of the best athletes on the planet will have people that cannot do the thing that they do stand next to them and then critique the shit out of what they're doing so that they can, right? So if you have that in your head, obviously extract it and use it for yourself. But also don't forget that that's a superpower, and also be okay if you're like, well, I shouldn't need some help on this. Like, as I said earlier, I was there during Tiger Woods' like heyday back in 2005-ish era. I watched him on the driving range every single day with this guy named Butch Harmon that was destroying like all these little nuances, swing after swing after swing after swing. So that can be a superpower for other people, but you should be okay with the fact that you might need it yourself too.
Love it. Last question for you, which is final piece of advice you could leave the room with.
Don't stop. Don't stop. It's a gift. If you enjoy it, if you're here, then 1,000% you love this space, right? You didn't take the time to come here to have these interactions, to do the things. Do not stop. The only reason why I'm sitting here right now is because I did not stop. That is the only reason. I had 1,000 reasons every day to not make another TikTok or to not make another thing. And for God knows what reason, I did not. And now I have a chance to stand here and be, I'm sitting right now. But it gave me a chance, if that was April 1st, 2022, I can't do the math off the top of my head, but that's a lot of days.
It's less than 3 years, but by a month. So let's say 300. Oh, this is bad. Let's stop. Cut the recording.
every day you're going to have a reason to stop. Give yourself a break. Be kind to yourself when you need to, but do not stop, and amazing things will happen.
Cheers, Tim. We're
Cheers,
grateful to
brother.
have you. Thank you for coming.